Well, he's back from India and even better, he's doing well, even in hotel quarantine in Sydney. Mike Hussey, great to have you back on Fox Sports News and more importantly, back home. How are you, mate?
Yeah, g'day, Jim. It feels good to be back on home soil, I must admit. It's been a bit of a long run, but no, yeah, feel relieved to be back home and just got to get through the next 2 weeks now and it'd be nice to get home to the family.
Absolutely. Look, I'm sure it's a bit different to how you felt a few weeks ago when you contracted COVID. How badly did it knock you around?
Probably looking back on it now, it probably knocked me around a little bit more than I thought at the time. I sort of felt like I had a bit of a head cold and then I had a cough and I had the fever for the first 2 or 3 days where you sort of just sweat through the night. But none of it was, I didn't feel like I was, had life-threatening symptoms or anything like that. I didn't feel as though I was going to have to be rushed to hospital. I wasn't short from breath or anything like that. So I didn't think the symptoms were too bad, but it certainly does knock you around a bit, and I'm still pretty tired, I guess, just sort of worn out from the whole episode.
Well, let's go back to that time. You test positive, you've got to isolate, of course, while the rest of the Aussie contingent start making their journey home via the Maldives. What happened to you?
Yeah, well, I had a couple of days in my hotel room in Delhi, where, to be honest, the COVID situation is really dire. It's horrible to see some of the footage on TV, and so my franchise, the Chennai Super Kings, were just a little bit concerned that if things went bad, maybe I wouldn't have access to the best possible sort of medical support. So they were pretty keen for me to get back down to Chennai. So I flew in like a little pod, like a body bag, really, down to Chennai, and then moved into a quarantine hotel there, where I spent, I think it must have been, just under 2 weeks there. Obviously, just recovering from COVID, and the care was really good. They looked after me well, and then once I was pretty relieved once I got the negative test to then be able to try and organise. Some flights back out to get home to Australia.
So when all that's happening, though, and you're travelling from Delhi back to Chennai in that incredible sort of medical bubble, I guess, there's travel bans to get home to Australia in place as well. You've got COVID and your Aussie mates are on their way home. I mean, you must have had some concerns at the time.
Yeah, I guess, well, the borders weren't going to be open up again until the 15th. So that was my goal, is just to try and make sure I test negative and get the virus out of my system by that time. And then hopefully I'd be getting home at a very similar time as everyone else was going to be able to as well. So that was the plan, and it worked out all right. It's pretty challenging. You get obviously a lot of messages of support and love and people that are caring so that sort of keeps you going a little bit, and certainly the family back home, they're pretty worried as well, and are getting lots of messages as well. So I don't know, it's obviously not a nice experience to go through, and it does get a bit stressful at times, but yeah, thankfully we're sort of through the worst of it now, and hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel.
Indeed, there is. Look, just on that, did you ever contemplate when you first left for the IPL that the borders would be shut from India back to Australia?
No, not at all. No, we went through all the proper channels. Obviously the government, gave us permission to go over there initially, and then I think while we were over there, things started to turn pretty bad pretty quickly. I must admit, the first sort of few weeks of the tournament, I felt very safe. We had an excellent bubble set up around sort of the team. And all the staff at the hotel were all living in, and they were all part of the bubble. Our travel to and from the games was all very, very slick, and we were very well protected. So I was actually feeling pretty good, despite the numbers of the cases going up, on the outside, pretty heavily. But then I guess once you start moving places, flying to Delhi, that's when the risk sort of goes up, and I don't exactly know where. COVID was able to jump into our bubble or penetrate our bubble, but yeah, I think it's probably riskier by travelling to different cities.
At the same time in all this, there was a bit of a narrative on these shores that these IPL cricketers, they're entitled and all the rest of it. That sort of rhetoric must have been so difficult for your family to deal with what people were saying about you. At the same time, you're dealing with COVID and just trying to get home.
Yeah, it's not nice, I guess, when you hear that sort of thing. But you also feel for the people that are stranded there in India that are trying to get home. I've had friends from other countries that have been trying to get home for over a year, and it is stressful for them as well. So we're very, I think as the players and the coaches involved in the tournament, we're very fortunate, and I think everyone should be really grateful that the BCCI in India, that they organised. They were very good at organising things for all the players and staff to be able to get home and to get home safely. That was their number one priority once they called or postponed the tournament. So I think we were very grateful about that. But I know, in speaking with a lot of the guys, that they're very, very aware of how many Australians are trying to get back home and are frustrated and are certainly desperate to get home. It's pretty stressful for everyone.
Yeah, well said. And when you say it like that, gee, cricket takes a massive backseat, doesn't it? But just a couple of quick ones on the sport itself, if I may. The T20 World Cup, of course, is scheduled for India later this year. Look, what do you think will happen? What do you think should happen?
Well, I think it's going to be very difficult, in my view, to play that tournament in India. We're talking about 8 teams in the IPL. I think there's probably a similar number, maybe more teams that are coming in from overseas. There's going to be more venues. And as I said earlier, with the playing in the different cities, that's when the risk goes up. So I think they'll have to look at some pretty big contingency plans, perhaps looking at the UAE or somewhere like that that could host the T20 World Cup, because I think there'll be a lot of boards, cricket boards from around the world, that'll be pretty nervous about going back to India, for a cricket tournament.
Indeed, yeah. Look, closer to home, Sandpaper Gate, it's back in the headlines. Seems to be these underlying suspicions, doesn't there, Huss, about did anyone know any more and when and what did that all look like? Look, do you think we need to get greater clarity on just what happened 3 years ago?
Well, I think, it sort of caught me by surprise when I heard Cameron Bancroft's comments. I think Cricket Australia will certainly want some clarification, and we'll have to speak to him and see what's going on. I guess I saw the very strong worded statement from the bowling group that came out, sort of denying any knowledge of it, and you've got to trust them. They're all good citizens and good guys. So you've got to back what they're saying as well. I guess probably just need a bit more clarity from Cameron about who else he's actually talking about. I guess, it does seem strange that only 3 people knew what was going on, in a cricket change room, which isn't that big at times, but it's certainly not conceivable to say that that everyone knew. I don't sort of buy into that at all. I don't think everyone could know what was going on. I don't know. It's disappointing. I'm sure Cricket Australia would have loved this to have been dealt with, moved on. The teams also have had to work really hard to gain the respect and the trust back of the public. And I guess it's just opened up this can of worms again. So it's probably not ideal, really.
And your home track, Perth, gets the last of the Ashes test confirmed. That must be wonderful news.
Yeah, well, let's hope it's a live series going into that last one, and everything to play for. So it's exciting. It's a beautiful stadium over there in Perth, and to have such have an Ashes Test match is really exciting. I'm sure the crowd will come out and really support it. I'm really looking forward to the Ashes. So I think it's going to be a great series. I really do. I think both teams are evenly matched and at this stage, and it should be a fantastic series.
Really do appreciate your time with us on Fox Sports News as always, and stay healthy, mate. We'll catch up soon.
Good on you, Jim. Thanks very much.